All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is Seattle Pandemonium Shutdown, day 409 by my count. Well, you know, when you have to eat crow, you have to eat crow. I mean, when you're wrong, you're wrong. And the Chauvin verdict came down just moments ago. Guilty on all three counts, which I find surprising. They're going to appeal, I assume. And now we find out how everyone's going to take it. So what are we going to do? Are we going to have celebratory rioting? Are we going to have demonstrations that turn into rioting? I don't know. People are saying, yeah. Other people are saying, well, what is celebratory rioting? Well, you know, like when your team wins a soccer match and you riot because you won. I don't know. Yeah, however these things start. But, I don't know. People are like, yes, justice for George Floyd. Yeah, I don't think it is. And I mean, not to be totally cynical, but it is like the guy is still dead. You don't, get him back or anything. But, yeah, I disagree with the jury. But that's the thing, is that people who watched the tape, you watched that video, as we all did, probably multiple times, and then again during the trial, we kind of, autopsied it, for lack of a better term. But we got different angles, and we got more information, we got more context. And the issue here is not that people aren't wrongfully killed in police custody. That could very well be the case in this situation. The problem that I've noticed this, and a lot of other people have, which is, I don't know, maybe a little bit of another topic I want to talk about, which is related to this one, which is journalists acting as activists. And in this specific instance, there was it the Minnesota Star Tribune? Apparently had reporters doxing the jurors in this trial. And by doxing, I'm saying I don't think they released specific addresses, but they released their name, their age, their weight, their race, and what part of the city they lived in. And that's jury intimidation. So, at the very least, there's grounds for an appeal. Now, why are journalists doing this in this trial? I don't know what their argumentation for doing that is. Juries are supposed to be, let's say, relatively anonymous, considering the nature of what's going on. I mean, if you're in a murder trial for a mob boss, well, then the juries are subject to intimidation because they're just people. And this is a strategy that criminals use to get out of guilty pleas, right? Or to force a jury to kind of, pick the right option, right? Make the right decision. Biden said, well, we hope for the right decision, and we're watching this very closely. You know what he's basically saying is, yeah, we want a guilty plea, right? Maxine Waters calling for people to, be confronted, and they need to get more agitated, and they need to, be more confrontational. And then there's, a drive-by shooting of some National Guard, which, who knows why people are doing that? Do they know who Maxine Waters even is if they're doing that? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe not all these things are directly connected, but I think it's not a great idea to be escalating tensions when, we've already had things like, there's been all kinds of, political violence and whatnot around the country. So again, journalists doing stuff that has nothing to do really with journalism, right? So it was Utah. What was this guy's name? Steve Nguyen? I always mess this up. Is it Nguyen? He's some kind of, he didn't look like Vietnamese, but maybe he is. Maybe halfy. He tracked down some paramedic that gave $10 to the Kyle Rittenhouse Legal Defense Fund and basically doxed this guy. And you're like, why? like lots and lots of people gave money to the Kyle Rittenhouse Legal Defense Fund because the kid got caught up in something bigger than himself, and there was legal defense funds for the Black Lives Matter rioters last year. So are you going to hold them accountable for the crimes that were committed during all those riots? I mean, this is so asinine, and it's just meant to make you intimidated to give money to legal defense funds that are deemed not okay by, by Journos, by, basically by leftists, liberals. So that guy had to delete it or deactivate his Twitter account because he was getting threats. He got ratioed like crazy by people telling him that he's, an a-hole for doing that to some random person. From a case from last summer, right? Was it last fall when that happened? Oh, come on. Let's put the hammer down here. But yeah, so people are supposed to have faith. So again, fake news, man. And here's another one. This was the one, the receipts were going around today. Trump said, back when he was still in office, when we were dealing with the coronavirus vaccines, he said Americans will have access to the vaccine in April. And all these prominent news outlets, WAPO, New York Times, have headlines like, Trump claims without evidence that we'll have the vaccine by April. Well, it's mid-April, and basically everyone can get a vaccine. So Trump was right, and you can ban him from the entire internet. It doesn't matter. The self-owned headlines and tweets from people who were just had total Trump derangement syndrome just haunts them because that stuff still exists. A lot of these journos are quietly trying to delete all their tweets that, said these kind of things, Trump doesn't know what he's talking about, and there's not going to be a vaccine by April, and, here we are. Look, I'll eat crow about the Chauvin verdict. If they don't appeal it and it just is murder, then, I don't know. The jury reviewed the information presented closer than I did. They were in the room when the testimony was given. They were unconvinced. You do an appeal, maybe you get another jury, and another jury says, yeah, same thing. Well, then, okay, I'm missing something then. Or I'm not convinced, or I am convinced by the defense's arguments for the legal criteria. Not about blame, guys, remember, or guilt. Because courts don't necessarily, or rather, innocence. They don't establish innocence, they establish guilt. I don't know that Chauvin did nothing wrong. It's just that I don't think that it's murder. Based on the argumentation from the defense. But I digress. The fake news of journalists acting as activists and doxing people, that needs to not really happen anymore, or maybe at all. It's because that's the kind of thing that the enemy of the people would do, which they should just stop doing that. And also, it's the news narrative manufacturing that goes on that is infuriating and tiresome, and the partisanship in so-called news media. Oh, is that SPD? There they go. Have a good night, boys. It's gonna get lit. I has a feeling, guys. As a local protest tracker, rioting and protesting is basically Seattle's most popular sport. And it's been so freaking nice lately that riot season came early, and some of them didn't really necessarily stop all winter long. They were at it out there throwing trash at the police station, and then they had another big rally just the other night. Got to get that warm-up going, Got to stay sharp with training camp, right? In the off-season. So we're going to have, the fake news, man. This fake news nonsense. Like, why, if these outlets are consistently wrong, right? Why are we listening to them? And why am I supposed to show deference to journos and blue checkerati, Twitterati types that constantly opine about, it's always like hyper partisan garbage. And I mean, both sides do it. Like, I don't need to, like, you don't need to, what was the guy's name? Jacob Blake, right? The guy that got shot in Minneapolis after trying to, like, kidnap this lady's kids and stuff, and the cops shot him, and now he's paralyzed, and that caused more rioting. There were people circulating, like, well, in this video you can see he has a knife, and it's like, well, actually, I don't see that in here. I see that there's a guy, and I see that there's possibly a knife. You don't have to invent details to make the story, swing one way or another politically, right? I'm tired of it. I think everybody's tired of it, but they're not gonna stop doing this, like, the New York Times and whatnot. Because, like the CNN story, right? The Project Veritas clips. CNN, the guy is trying to show off for his date that he met on Tinder. Yeah, I work for CNN. Yeah, we are, we put stuff on screen to drive ratings, and we use fear. Fear sells, so that's what we do. So if that doesn't tell you that they're not trying to educate and inform you, they're just trying to keep your eyes on them so that they can sell ad time. I mean, that's their objective. Their objective isn't to tell you truths about the world that will make you a more informed citizen. In fact, there's very much the opposite going on. If they can misinform you, disinform you, distract you with nonsense, as long as it keeps your attention, they win. As long as you keep tuning back in, they win. And they, aside from things like slander or something, they don't ever have to be held accountable. So, the news media has a vice-like grip of control over the minds of, well, basically everyone, right? At some capacity, what various major news outlets choose to discuss becomes what you have to know about. And when I say that, I mean the reason you know about George Floyd at all is because mainstream news outlets picked up the story and ran with it because of how horrific it looked. If it hadn't gone as viral, then they probably wouldn't have talked about it. They wouldn't have known about it. They wouldn't have known about it. Without the video, they probably wouldn't have run the story at all, because it doesn't look horrific. It doesn't cause outrage. And then the trial wouldn't be getting as much attention, and then this whole thing would just be, kind of a nothing burger, in the sense that it wouldn't be an international story and people wouldn't use it as an excuse to go riot and destroy things, etc., etc. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not gonna cry a lot of tears for Chauvin. I mean, the guy's was kind of a crappy cop, is my understanding. But he wasn't on trial for being a bad cop in these other instances. He was on trial for this specific thing. So, again, from like a legal standpoint, I really think they didn't actually have... How can you be guilty of homicide and manslaughter? I mean, as not a lawyer, it sounds like he accidentally, intentionally killed him. Which, that doesn't make any sense to me. But, I'm not a lawyer, so... Yeah, I don't know. I'll be tracking local protest stuff here. Probably will have some activity tonight, especially, based on the bike cops I just saw go by. Should be an interesting night. I bet Minneapolis is going to be popping. And not in a good way. All right, I'll talk to you guys later.